In the freezing heights of the Karakoram mountain range, a dangerous power play is unfolding. A military standoff between India and China on their disputed border in the Himalayas has escalated into deadly clashes. This is Globe Z, and today we will look into the recent China-India standoff. The face-off in the eastern Ladakh region, which was carved out of Indian-occupied Kashmir last August, started on May 5 and May 6, when soldiers of both sides were involved in a skirmish. Indian officials say that within days, Chinese troops had encroached on the Indian side of their demarcation line in the Ladakh region further to the west, and in response, India has moved extra troops to the positions opposite. Historically, the Indo-China border conflict stretches back to at least 1914, when representatives from Britain, the Republic of China and Tibet gathered in Simla in what is now India to negotiate a treaty that would determine the status of Tibet and effectively settle the borders between China and British India. The Chinese refused to sign the deal, but Britain and Tibet signed a treaty establishing what would be called the McMahon Line, named after a British colonial official, Henry McMahon, who proposed the border. India maintains that the McMahon Line, a 550-mile frontier that extends through the Himalayas, is the official legal border between China and India, but China has never accepted it. The China-India border dispute covers nearly 3,500 kilometers of frontier that the two countries call the line of actual control. The two nuclear-armed neighbors have a checkered history of face-offs and overlapping territorial claims along the poorly drawn line of actual control separating the two sides. The LAC is poorly demarcated. The presence of rivers, lakes, and snowcaps means the line can shift. The soldiers either side, representing two of the world's largest armies, come face to face at many points. The two countries fought a bitter war in 1962 that spilled into Ladakh, in which India was humiliated and lost a lot of territory, while Beijing retained a sky chin, a strategic corridor linking Tibet to China. Both sides see the area as strategically, economically, and militarily important. India still claims the entire Skychin region as its own, as well as the nearby China-controlled Shaksgam Valley in northern Kashmir. The tension between the two nations spilled over in 2017 in the Doklam area of the Himalayas after Indian troops moved in to prevent the Chinese military from building a road into territory claimed by Bhutan, an ally of India. The Doklam Plateau is strategically significant as it gives China access to the so-called Chicken's Neck or Siliguri corridor, which is a narrow stretch of land of about 22 kilometers connecting India's 7 northeastern sister states with the mainland, which are Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, and Tripura. These 7 states have always remained simmering with independence movements like Indian-occupied Kashmir and have mostly been ruled by local nationalist political leaders. Both sides withdrew troops in late August of that year and issued vague remarks about a resolution. Exactly what was decided behind the scenes was unclear, though reports that China had halted construction of the motorway suggested that Beijing had backed down. Since 1993, both India and China agreed to peaceful and friendly consultations to resolve the boundary dispute. It was agreed not to use force and to respect the LAC. However, several rounds of talks in the last 3 decades have failed to resolve boundary disputes. After the recent bloody clash, the resumption of immediate contact between the Indian and Chinese leadership brought signs of relief to the region. However, the communication may prevent the escalation of the conflict temporarily, but without a permanent solution, the probability of escalation still remains. Now we will have an overview of the incidents that occurred in recent months. On 5th May, the first standoff began as a clash between Indian and Chinese soldiers at a beach of Pangong Sao, a lake shared between India, Tibet and China, with the line of actual control passing through it. A video showed soldiers from both nations engaging in fistfights and stone pelting along the LAC. According to the Daily Telegraph and other sources, China captured 60 square kilometers of Indian patrolled territory between May and June 2020. After the clash, several Chinese military helicopters were spotted flying near the Indian border on at least 2 occasions. India deployed several Sukhoi Su-30 MKI jets to the area. Reports that Chinese helicopters had repeatedly violated Indian airspace were denied by the Indian government. According to Indian media reports, on 10th May, a spat began when Chinese intruded into the Muguthang Valley. The incident developed into a brawl involving 150 soldiers, with opposing sides throwing stones at one another. 7 Chinese and 4 Indian soldiers were reported to have been injured. On 15th June, Indian and Chinese troops clashed for 6 hours in a steep section of a mountainous region in Galwan Valley. The immediate cause of the incident is unknown, with both sides releasing contradictory official statements in the aftermath. Beijing said that Indian troops had attacked Chinese troops first, while on 18th June, The Hindu quoted a senior government official in the Ministry of External Affairs of India who said that Indian troops were ambushed with boulders being thrown at them by Chinese troops. As a result, hand-to-hand combat broke out. Eventually, up to 600 men were engaged in combat using stones, batons, iron rods, and other makeshift weapons. The fighting, which took place in near total darkness, lasted for up to 6 hours. The fighting resulted in the deaths of 20 Indian soldiers of the 16th Bihar Regiment, including its commanding officer Colonel Santosh Babu. While 3 Indian soldiers died on the spot, others died later due to injuries. India's Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar made a statement saying that China had unilaterally tried to change the status quo and that its claims over the Galwan Valley were exaggerated and the violence was premeditated and planned. It is important to note that Galwan Valley is strategically the most important area for both countries. Now the question that arises is that what triggered China's moves along the line of actual control? There are several reasons why tensions are rising now, but competing strategic goals lie at the root, and both sides blame each other. India has built a new role in what experts say is the most remote and vulnerable area along the LAC in Ladakh. India's decision to ramp up infrastructure seems to have infuriated Beijing. The road could boost Delhi's capability to move men and material rapidly in case of a conflict. But China is opposed to any Indian construction in the area, saying it is disputed territory. Recently declared a federal territory by Indian authorities, separating it from the disputed state of Kashmir, Ladakh lies at the confluence of 3 nuclear states, India, China and Pakistan, and has a landlocked area of 50,000 square kilometers with a population under 300,000, where 46% are Muslims, 40% Buddhists and 12% Hindus. It is the area where physical military collusion among these countries can take place, which makes it a potential flashpoint.